Hello friends, very good evening greetings to all of you. So, in these chilly evening hours, I feel privileged to conduct this great strategic economic session with you guys. So, in this session, I am about to discuss the very core matters pertaining to the overall functioning of our economy. That is the recent developments which have occurred in our economy, helping us to analyze the current status of where we are lying, right? Along with this, we are also going to consider the core developments occurring in the international economics, that is the entire global economic scenario. What are the viewpoints being presented by the international economists and the respected ministries of various countries, especially during the annual gathering of the World Economic Forum being held in Davos, Switzerland. So let's begin. So basically, first of all, I would like to present the insights or the humanitarian appeal being made by the Ukraine First Lady, Ms. Olena Zelenska, on the very strategic platform of World Economic Forum at Davos. So, Ukraine First Lady urges the world leaders at Davos to rein in Russia. This lady, Ms. Olena Zelenska, warned the world leaders and corporate executives at the World Economic Forum's annual gathering in Davos that not all of them are actually using their influence at a time when Russia's invasion leaves children dying and a world struggling with the massive problem of food insecurity. So dear friends, this is a very humanitarian appeal made by this noble lady, Ms. Olena Zelenska, wherein she basically tries her best to convince the international leaders of the globe to please consider this matter very seriously, as the innocent civilians are losing their lives. And what about the innocent children, who are the precious assets for the entire global society? Moreover, the very important matter of food insecurity, with which several nations are suffering as a result of the very adverse supply chain disruptions being caused worldwide as a result of this gradually intensifying Ukraine-Russia war, due to the rising enmity and geopolitical tensions between these two countries. So, Lady Ms. Olena Zelenska basically delivers a speech at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland on 17th January 2023. The annual meeting of the World Economic Forum is basically taking place in Davos from January 16 until January 20, 2023. Now, dear friends, let's move to discuss another very important aspect pertaining to the international economics. Basically, in the current scenario, what are we observing? We are observing that various central banks across the globe, as a result of the gradually intensifying global headwinds, are trying to combat inflation through continuous global monetary tightening processes. And this exercise is being carried out by the respective central banks of various countries across the globe. Now, it's fine that inflation can be brought under control to a certain extent with the help of this continuous global monetary tightening. We are quite aware that this particular exercise is going to have, or is having, adverse impact on the economic growth. As all of us know that the current GDP of the world economy is 1.7%. Only 1.7%, which is actually very low. Along with that, it is also leading to the boom and bust cycle. That is, it is leading to more and more unemployment across the globe. Actually, these two factors are interrelated. They are very, very correlated. That is, more we try to tame inflation through global monetary tightening, more will be the global unemployment. Right? So, Mr. Bob Prince basically states that more jobs need to vanish before inflation is tamed. Mr. Bob Prince, who helps manage the world's largest hedge fund, said, "We are seeing the return of the boom-bust cycle, and more people need to lose their jobs before inflation will be brought under control." Now, many of you may not be well versed with the term boom and bust cycle. What does this mean? So, here we are going to analyze and try to conceptualize the meaning of this particular term in detail with certain examples. See, my dear friends, the boom and bust cycle is actually a process of economic expansion and contraction that occurs repeatedly. We are quite aware of the sinusoidal curve, right? All of us have studied about this particular concept. That is growth and then the decline. Then again the growth, then again the decline, right? So this is the similar concept. That is, the boom and bust cycle is a key characteristic of the capitalist economies and is sometimes synonymous with the business cycle. That is, during the boom, the economy grows, jobs are plentiful, and the market brings high returns to the investors. Then in the subsequent bust, the economy shrinks, people lose their jobs, and investors lose money. So the boom-bust cycles last for varying lengths of time. They also vary in the level of severity. So there are three main traits of this particular process, that is the boom and bust cycle. Firstly, this cycle basically describes the alternating phases of economic growth and decline typically found in the modern capitalist economies. Secondly, first anticipated by Mr. Karl Marx in the 19th century, the boom-bust cycle is actually driven just as much by investor and consumer psychology as it is by the market and economic fundamentals. And thirdly, this particular cycle can last anywhere from several months to several years, with the average length being approximately 5 years going back to the 1850s. Now, after having developed the very strong comprehensive analysis of the term boom and bust cycle, we are going to move further in our discussion of how the efforts to combat inflation and unemployment rate across the globe interrelated. So, as per Mr. Bob Prince, it's quite hard to say whether we are done with the tightening or we will have another tightening. So, I would also like to say that Mr. Bob Prince is the co-chief investment officer of Bridgewater Associates. And this pioneer is basically discussing this topic in an interview with Bloomberg TV at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. So, what we can say is that the next shoe to drop has to be a decline in the economy, that is the bust phase. In particular, a contraction in the labor markets. Mr. Prince said the traders were still acting like the Federal Reserve will repeat its response to the previous downturns and therefore buoy stock prices. So what is discounted is actually a return to the last decade, he said. What is actually happening is more like the 1970s, more like the boom-bust cycle. His predictions run counter to what some CEOs, including Citigroup Inc.'s Jane Fraser, have been saying elsewhere at Davos about the prospects of a mild recession. Still, Mr. Bob Prince said the depth of any downturn will depend on how far the central banks go to counter inflation and how much companies rein in their own spending. So as I have discussed, I'm repeating that particular statement once again. That is, the rate of unemployment, that is the after effect of the efforts of taming inflation, would actually depend on the extent, to what extent the global monetary tightening was carried out. So the boom-bust cycle refers to the economic expansion and contraction that repeats itself, as we have already discussed. The central bank intervention since the financial crisis and monetary easing for much of the last decade had disrupted that particular pattern and fueled a market boom. Speaking at Davos in 2020, Mr. Prince himself said that the boom-bust economic cycle was over. We are actually experiencing the after effects of the monetary stimulation of the US and European economies. Now, the money is spinning around the system, exchanging hands from one to the next, Mr. Prince said. Spending has not fallen off hardly at all, not nearly enough to bring down the inflation. The Westport, Connecticut-based investment firm's Pure Alpha 2 fund ended last year up 9.5% after losing much of its annual gains in October and November as the markets turned. So, after having developed the very broad and comprehensive analysis pertaining to the very important economic matter of global monetary tightening in order to combat or tame inflation and how it is related to increasing unemployment or coming trend of increased unemployment across the globe, we are now going to discuss another very important aspect regarding the very positive prospects of the leading state of our country, that is Maharashtra, who is about to sign the memorandums of understanding, that is MoUs, worth 1.4 lakh crore rupees with the leading economies across the globe. So here it goes. Seeking to present Maharashtra as a key investment destination, the state chief minister, Mr. Eknath Shinde, plans to sign the MoUs worth 1.4 lakh crore rupees, that is 17 billion US dollars, here on the sidelines of the World Economic Annual Forum meeting. As many as 21 MoUs are being lined up to be signed with the leading foreign investors and global companies during Shinde's two-day visit beginning Monday, according to the officials. The investments are actually estimated to create more than 66,500 jobs over the next few years and are aimed in jump-starting Maharashtra on its ambitious $1 trillion US economic goal journey, they added. So it's a great moment of pride. Really, it's really marvelous. Of these, majority are the greenfield projects in data centers and then the pharmaceuticals, logistics, chemicals, automobiles, electric vehicles, renewable energy, and ESDM, that is electronic system design and manufacturing, which will actually foster inclusive growth, job creation, and sustainable development. that is the holistic development. Mr. Shinde said that Maharashtra has been a key driver and contributor to India's economic growth. He actually states, we are leading the way in delivering groundbreaking investment opportunities and building confidence for the investing community. These memorandums of understanding actually demonstrate the heightened interest in the state and are a testament to Maharashtra's progressive policies and investor-friendly initiatives under our new government. I have presented the progressive policy reforms of my government, making the state a part of the global conversation to basically reiterate to the political leaders and global investors why Maharashtra is a premier investment destination, he added. Maharashtra has also signed the prestigious 3-year platform partnerships with the World Economic Forum, a commercial contract for continuous engagements on the subjects of strategic importance to the state. The subjects basically focus on shaping the future of urban transformation, smart and connected cities, urban resilience, governance, infrastructure and services, and resource management. And new economies and societies focusing on entrepreneurship, education and skills, economic growth, and job creation. So this appears to be a very, very ambitious deal with great hopes. Over the 2 days, Mr. Shinde will be presenting Maharashtra's progressive policies and investor-friendly outlook to the key political and government representatives from Luxembourg, Saudi Arabia, and Singapore, among others. So, Maharashtra is actually one of the most industrialized states in India, contributing 16% to the country's industrial output and 15% to its gross domestic product, that is GDP. The service sector basically contributes the most to the state's economy, accounting for 62% of its GDP, while the manufacturing sector, that is the secondary sector, is the second largest contributor to the state's economy, accounting for 20% of the GDP. Major industries in Maharashtra include automobiles, engineering, textiles, pharmaceuticals, then chemicals, then the petrochemicals, and the food processing units, followed with IT. Maharashtra Industrial Development Corporation, that is MIDC, is actually the state government's nodal investment promotion agency. It was set up in 1962 by a special act of the state government with the mandate to achieve balanced industrial development in Maharashtra. It is the special planning body which actually operates through a vast network of local offices. The organization manages 289 industrial parks built over 2.25 lakh acres of land across the state. So this really fills up with great pride that our country's state, Maharashtra, is actually touching the sky with great laurels. So, after this insightful analysis, let's go through the views being presented by Ms. Smriti Irani, the Union Minister. So, she basically said India is open for business round the clock, and so is the Indian government, as she invited the global businesses to tap the huge potential available in the country. And this was the statement made by her today, addressing the World Economic Forum being held in Davos. So addressing a breakfast session organized by the Industry Chamber CII, and consultancy giant Deloitte here on the sidelines of the World Economic Forum annual meeting 2023 being held in Davos. The minister said, "We believe in working in partnership with the industry and every other stakeholder." The Minister for Women and Child Development also said that India actually runs the largest healthcare system in the world in the form of Ayushman Bharat that actually covers 100 million families. So, it provides healthcare facilities across the geographic boundaries, and though it was not designed as a gendered program, but it has ended up benefiting a vast majority of women, she added. Ms. Irani further said the Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji has also launched a program that would ensure every district in the country gets a hospital. On skilling needs, she said the government has ensured that each sector has got a skill council that is led by an industry captain, while the government has also set up the first ever skills ministry. She also said when the world basically talks about the requirement for reskilling hundreds of millions of people, India is capable of reaching that target alone. This is a lovely highlight being given by her, so I would like to repeat it. Ms. Smriti Irani said, when the world talks about the requirement for reskilling hundreds of millions of people, India is capable of reaching that target alone. Explaining the Indian way, she said that India engaged with the world for building its own indigenous COVID vaccines, but it was not done with a commercial intention, but with compassion. That is, the compassion plays a very, very important role. It's of paramount importance to consider the entire globe as one family. That's what she is saying here. That the supply of the COVID vaccines during the pandemic was not done with a commercial motive, but with compassion as a humanitarian approach. As we have been emphasizing and discussing in all our sessions. Further, she added, we also offer the business opportunities to the entire world in the form of nutraceuticals. Now, many of you might not be familiar with this particular term, that is nutraceuticals. It is a very innovative concept, dear guys. I would like to explain this particular term. Basically, nutraceutical products can be considered non-specific biological therapies used to promote general well-being, control the symptoms, and prevent the malignant processes. It is basically a broad umbrella term that is used to describe any product derived from the food sources with extra health benefits, in addition to the basic nutritional value found in the foods. So this is actually a very, very innovative concept, right? And furthermore, to enhance your knowledge, I would like to let you know that the term nutraceutical combines the two words, that is nutrient, which is actually a nourishing food component, and pharmaceutical, which is basically a medical drug. That is nutrient plus pharmaceutical becomes nutraceutical. So this particular name was coined in 1989 by Stephen D. Phillips, founder and chairman of the Foundation for Innovation in Medicine, which is an American organization located in Cranford, New Jersey. So see what all heights our economy has been able to attain in this particular tough time of global crisis. This is really wonderful. We are boosting on our strengths And for that particular reason, we are being highlighted across the globe, and various economies across the globe are trying to approach us to develop and enhance further the overall trade relationships and the overall bilateral relationships holistically with us. They also are considering it's a great honor for them as well to be associated with India. And it's a two-way relationship. And the basic foundation is the concept of global family, the unified concept, which we have been emphasizing and elaborating, the basic thought process of our governing leaders. Now, there is again a very important international development going on, which is very, very relevant for India. That is, the Pakistan Prime Minister, Mr. Sharif, wants to basically finish the overall uncomfortable level being shared with India. He says that we have learned a lesson and we want peace with India. This is really great. So let's discuss. Pakistan has actually learned a lesson and wants to live in peace with India. Prime Minister Mr. Shehbaz Sharif has said, emphasizing that the two neighbors should not waste their resources on bombs and ammunition. The Prime Minister Mr. Sharif made these comments during an interview with the Dubai-based Al Arabiya news channel on Monday. The relations between India and Pakistan have been strained over the Kashmir issue and the cross-border terrorism emanating from Pakistan. He further states, we basically have 3 wars with India, and it only brought some misery, poverty, and unemployment at very great levels to the people, that is, to the common people. My message to the Indian leadership and Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji is that let us sit down on the table and have serious and sincere talks for resolving our burning issues like Kashmir, he said. He further said Pakistan and India are actually the neighbors and have to live with each other. We have learned our lesson and we want to live in peace, provided we are able to resolve our genuine problems. We want to alleviate poverty, achieve prosperity, and provide education and health facilities and employment to our people and not waste our resources on bombs and ammunition. That is the message I want to give to the respected Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji, Mr. Sharif said. Meanwhile, a spokesperson of the Prime Minister's office on Tuesday said Mr. Sharif has consistently maintained that Pakistan and India must resolve their bilateral issues, especially the core issue of Kashmir, through dialogue. The statement came following his interview. The spokesperson said Mr. Sharif has repeatedly stated that the talks with India can only take place after New Delhi reversed its action of actually bifurcating Jammu and Kashmir in 2019. The ties between the two countries basically nosedived after India abrogated Article 370 of the Constitution, revoking the special status of Jammu and Kashmir and bifurcating the state into 2 union territories on August 5, 2019. So India's decision basically evoked a strong reaction from Pakistan, which downgraded the diplomatic ties and expelled the Indian envoy. The trade ties between Pakistan and India have essentially been frozen since then. So without India's revocation of this step, the negotiations are not possible, the PMO statement said. So dear friends, after going through this in-depth discussion in which the Pakistan Prime Minister Mr. Sharif wants to have talks with our respected Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji regarding to actually develop the friendly relationships between the two nations, wherein he wishes to propagate the theme of peace with India and friendship with India. I would like to move ahead, wherein I would like to discuss another major developmental talk which was held during the World Economic Forum in this annual gathering. And it's regarding a very, very strategic matter of great concern, that is the climate issue, a very important SDG, right? That is the Sustainable Development Goal. So, the World Economic Forum launches the initiative to unlock $3 trillion on a year from the climate perspective. The World Economic Forum on Tuesday launched the Giving to Amplify Earth Action, that is GAEA, to help unlock the $3 trillion of financing needed each year to reach net zero, reverse nature loss, and actually restore biodiversity by the year 2050. The global initiative to actually fund and grow new and existing public, private, and philanthropic partnerships is supported by more than 45 partners, including HCL Technologies through its chairperson, Ms. Roshni Nader Malhotra. With the energy and cost of living crisis, the ambition of steering the planet towards a 1.5 degrees Celsius warming pathway hangs in the balance, the World Economic Forum said. Meanwhile, the recent agreement at the UN Biodiversity Conference, that is CBD COP15 in Montreal, to conserve 30% of all earth and sea looks bold but fragile in the face of a rising biodiversity crisis. Current funding is actually slow and inadequate, and a new approach therefore is needed to get the capital flowing. Philanthropic giving can address this with unique qualities not found in other financing. It is nimble, more tolerant of risks, and is driven by values and long-term outcomes rather than quarterly returns, the World Economic Forum said. So, according to the World Economic Forum founder and executive chairman, Mr. Klaus Schwab, we are actually at a tipping point in our efforts to put the planet back on track to meet our climate ambitions. In order to reach the speed and scale required to heal the Earth's systems, we need to unlock not only the private capital and government funds, but also the philanthropy sector as a truly catalytic force to achieve the necessary acceleration. So, the GAEA's growing body of philanthropic partners include Active Philanthropy, the African Climate Foundation, Andre Hoffmannen Family Office, the Arab Foundations Forum, Bezos Earth Fund, BMW Foundation, and Children's Investment Fund Foundation. It also includes the Clean Air Fund, Climate Leadership Initiative, Climate Works Foundation, 1111 Foundation, the Gordon and Betty Moore Foundation, then Grow World Climate Fund, IKEA Foundation, then Lord's Foundation, then Noah's Ark Foundation, United Nations Foundation, the Wellcome Trust, Wings, and Workday Foundation. The individuals, academic institutions, companies, and public sector organizations supporting the initiative include Cambridge University for Sustainability, Leadership, and HCL Tech through their chairperson, Ms. Roshni Nadar Malhotra. The philanthropic financing for the climate mitigation has actually risen in the recent years, but still represents less than 2% of the total philanthropic giving, estimated at 10 billion US dollars plus 800 billion US dollars. That is equal to the amount 810 billion US dollars in 2021. So this is a very noble initiative being launched by the WEF, that is the World Economic Forum, to actually unlock the $3 trillion a year for climate, addressing a very, very important and strategic concern from the point of view of the Sustainable Development Goal. And this is an excellent forum to basically launch this particular initiative. Now, dear guys, we are going to discuss a very important development occurring in the international economics. That is the China's growth status. At 3%, China's 2022 GDP growth is actually lowest in 4 decades. Actually, China's economy grew last year at its slowest pace in 4 decades as it was hammered by the COVID lockdowns and the property crisis. But the forecast beating reading raised hopes for a strong recovery as it reopens. Beijing's rigid adherence to its zero COVID strategy of strict containment that effectively shut the country off from the world hammered business activity last year and threw the supply chains offline, rattling the global economy. The measures meant the growth came in at just 3% last year, the worst reading since a 1.6% contraction in 1976 when Mr. Mao Zedong died, excluding the pandemic hit 2020. The National Bureau of Statistics official, Mr. Kang Yi, told the reporters on Tuesday the world's number 2 economy had in 2022 faced the storms and rough waters in the global environment and warned the foundation of the domestic economic recovery is not solid as the international situation is still quite complicated and severe. The figure missed the government's 5.5% target and was well down from the previous year, but it was very much at a better place than the 2.7% predicted in an AFP survey of analysts. The 4th quarter reading also topped the forecasts, providing some optimism for the year 2023. The retail sales shrank just 1.8% in December 2022 compared with the 9.0% estimated as the lifting of restrictions allowed the consumers to go back to the high street. The industrial output and fixed asset investment also beat expectations, while unemployment fell last month from November. The good news is that there are now the signs of stabilization as the policy support doled out towards the end of 2022 is showing up in the relative resilience of infrastructure investment and credit growth. Louis Liu, senior economist at Oxford Economics, said in a note. So China's economic woes last year sent the overall reverberations across a global supply chain already struggling with the warning demand caused by the surging inflation and central bank interest rate hikes. The strict lockdowns, quarantines, and compulsory mass testing with regards to the COVID-19 pandemic prompted the abrupt closures of manufacturing facilities and businesses in the major hubs, including Zhengzhou, home of the world's biggest iPhone factory. Beijing abruptly loosened the pandemic restrictions in December 2022 in the wake of some of the biggest protests in years, but the move has actually sent infections soaring across the country, sparking concerns about the near-term effects on the economy as a whole. The World Bank has actually forecast China's GDP will rebound to 4.3% in 2023, still below expectations. The problems in the property industry are also still weighing on growth. So dear friends, after this great in-depth analysis on Chinese economy, which is actually depicting the GDP growth to be the lowest in 4 decades for this particular country, that is at 3%. The Chinese economy grew at this slowest pace in 4 decades as it was hammered by the COVID lockdowns and a property crisis. But the forecast beating reading raised hopes for a strong recovery as it reopens. So dear friends, after having developed such a broad and comprehensive framework of the overall economics, be it our domestic economy. For India, we have gone through the major developments occurred recently in our economy, and we have also discussed the major strategic issues of paramount concern with regards to the international economics, right? And the overall international trade relationships, especially the relationship between India and Pakistan, which is actually taking a new turn. Now let's see how do the talks between the prime ministers of the respective countries turn out to be. Let's hope for the best. Yes. So, dear guys, it was really a great pleasure, like always, to conduct this session, and I hope you must have got immensely benefited with this insightful session. And if you have any queries, or if you have any if you wish to give any particular feedback regarding our session, that if you require any kind of modification in the subsequent sessions, you are most welcome to present your comments in the comment section here. So I welcome your suggestions, your feedbacks, your queries, your doubts. So thank you so much for your very patient and cooperative listening. Thank you so much. Namaskar. Jai Hind.